Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. All right, I thought it would be a fun exercise for us to check out a couple of heavy hitters in the 30 cal realm. We're going to be comparing the Daniel Defense DD5V4, which is a new rifle for Daniel Defense, to the awesome, ever awesome FN SCAR 20S. Both guns fill a very similar niche in terms of what they're designed to do. Both of them have very similar performance standards and performance capabilities, and each one kind of has its own little unique thing that it's really good at and where it excels. We'll go over some of the specs. I do have some comparative specs here to talk about. Now, the DD5V4 that we have here, we knocked out a full video on this rifle, and it is one outstanding shooter. Man, what an accurate rifle. And we've also done a full video on the 20S. And the 20S was a rifle that I was really wanting to learn more about, as you know, seeing it come out of SHOT Show and seeing the first versions of this gun come out. You know, I've been following the 20S for a long time, and as you know, Daniel Defense has been kind of making rolling changes to the DD5 platform, and I feel like this new rifle is outstanding. So we're going to compare the two a bit. The DD5V4 has an 18-inch barrel with a 1 and 11-inch right hand twist. The SCAR 20 has a 20-inch barrel with a 1 and 12-inch right hand twist. Velocity-wise, about 45 feet per second more on the velocity out of the 20-inch barrel over the DD5V4, which is really not that much. Now, accuracy-wise, both of them pretty exceptional guns. They're going to be 1-minute guns, no problem. Some outlying groups in both guns saw sub-minute groups, which for an auto is pretty dang impressive, okay? We have both these rifles outfitted pretty close, okay, as close as we could get. The Daniel Defense DD5 is wearing a Leupold Mark IV. This one's a 4.5 to 14 with a tactical milling reticle in it. We have a Leupold Mark VI. There's a 3 to 18 on the SCAR. The Louis that is on the Daniel Defense is sitting in a LaRue quick release mount. The Leupold on the SCAR is sitting in a spur mount, okay? Each rifle is wearing the same suppressor. We have a pair of AAC SDN6s here, both doing a great job. They're both excellent suppressors, and they use the 51 tooth muzzle device that's on each of these, okay? A couple of differences, all right? So we'll kind of compare and contrast. The DD5 is available with a mil-spec trigger, and you can also get it with a Geisley Super Semi-Auto. The SCAR 20S comes with the Super SCAR trigger as standard issue equipment on this gun. The price points on these guns are very different. You know, as of the point of this video being made, a 20S is going to set you back about $4,000, whereby the DDs can be had for considerably less than that, getting kind of more into that like $2,300 range or somewhere like that. So definitely big price point differences on these two guns. Okay. All right. Each one has an adjustable length of pull. This stock is adjustable for length of pull and comb height. All right. So you don't have a comb height adjustment on the Daniel Defense. Each one is chambered in 7.62 by 51 NATO. All right. Now the DD5 is available in 6.5 Creedmoor, which is really cool. I've heard rumors that they're working on a 6.5 Creedmoor 20S and 16, but time will tell on that. I'm not sure if that's a substantiated thing or not. Okay. All right, weight difference. That's a huge thing for me on this, okay? Because I carry around my rifles a lot. I'm going all over the place. The Daniel Defense is considerably lighter of a rifle to carry around. Even with an optic, bipod, suppressor, you know, those accessories really weigh down the base setup of the rifle once you start accessorizing. But without optics and suppressors, bipods, just the naked rifle, the DD weighs in at 8.6 pounds, whereby the 20S, it's a hoss now. All right, it's weighing in at 11.2 pounds empty. That's no ammo and with a standard magazine. Okay, the DD5 is a direct gas impingement gun with a adjustable gas system for a suppressed and unsuppressed setting. That was some of the feedback that Daniel Defense got from their users on the DD5, was that they wanted a version of the DD5 with an adjustable gas block. So they did that. It still retains the DI function, which is super smooth recoiling and suppresses exceptionally well. The 20S uses a semi-short stroke piston system, and they tout the 20S as having a suppressor setting on the gas block, okay? There's certainly some differences between the two guns, but they are both threaded 5/8 by 24, so that makes muzzle devices and suppressors super easy thing. I will make mention that the Daniel Defense has a much more discernible shoulder for suppressor mounts and things like that, versus the Scar. For some reason, they don't have that good of a shoulder for mounting muzzle devices to the gun. So that's one thing to consider, is that the shoulder on that Scar is not quite as good for mounting a wider variety of muzzle devices and suppressors as the DD is, okay? The shortest configuration in terms of the overall length on the DD5 is 35 3/8 inches, and the longest configuration is 39 inches. With the Scar, the shortest configuration is 40.6 inches with the longest configuration of 42.5 inches. So both guns are pretty equally maneuverable, especially considering that the Scar 20 only adds that 2 extra inches on the barrel. So if you were to take 2 inches off the barrel, both guns are pretty similar in length. Okay, now this is where the guns kind of take some different directions, is the uppers, okay? The 20S uses sort of like what we would consider a monolithic upper that is one piece. That does increase the weight, and a lot of the weight increase that you get out of the Scar is also from the humongous piece of reciprocating mass that is the bolt carrier of the Scar. You add a lot of weight on the bolt of the Scar. So combine that with a big old hunkin' modular rail section, which both are pretty in line with each other in terms of having about the same amount of space of available rail space, but it does make for a heavier gun. And then also another thing that wound up making the Scar a lot heavier is the stock design that they went with, being more, you know, an alloy stock design, and the additional parts for the adjustable comb height. That definitely equates to a little bit heavier hardware as opposed to the DD. The Daniel Defense uses their proprietary 4-bolt mounting system for the upper and the rail system. It makes a very, very solid arrangement. It's not one continuous piece like one extrusion or one machined part. It is 2 separate pieces, but the lockup and how tight it is super strong and super reliable, and a very proven system that has been used by Daniel Defense for quite some time. So, you know, I don't feel like the Scar wins a lot of points just for having a monolithic upper over the DD. Now look, I want to be fair in this video. I love both these rifles. I own both these guns, okay? So I'm not playing favorites here, okay? Both these rifles are excellent, and I do like both of them, and they each have their own unique kind of charm about them. I find that shooting from the prone, you know, even though it is a short stroke piston type of operation, the Scar is very smooth to shoot from the prone, and it is very, very accurate. The DD, being a direct gas impingement, super easy to shoot from the prone. It does not kick anything like you would think, and I would say that the DD suppresses a little bit better than the Scar. DI is always going to be a little bit quieter and lower in pitch generally, okay? So that I'm definitely happy about. And in terms of ergonomics, the DD is nice because it's an AR-15. It's familiar, right? There's nothing new to really learn. Okay, the charging handle, mag release, all of those things, real easy to get to. We'll talk about that here a little bit more in a moment. All right, magazine compatibility. All right, this is one of the areas that the Scar loses some points, because Scar magazines are very expensive, and they are sometimes hard to get depending on what part of the country you live in. The Daniel Defense is cool because it uses SR25 pattern magazines, which are both cheap and readily available, okay? Don't think there's really much more to talk about there than that. I mean, cheap mags are always great, especially when they work. And the magazines, and especially if you run PMags, are lighter weight than the Scar mags. All right, with the Scar, another thing that you run into with extra weight is also going to be from the fact that you've got full pick rail all the way around all sides of the forend on the Scar. So that does add some extra weight. So you're getting into extra things on this gun where you're adding weight. On the DD, they decided to keep it nice and clean, and you only have a piece of pick rail going on the top of the rail and the top of the receiver section, and keeping nice low profile and naked M-LOK slots all through and throughout. There is so much M-LOK space on this gun. You can put any amount of accessories you want on this thing, and you only put the accessories exactly where you need it, so that keeps the overall weight profile down on this as well. So that's really cool. Now, the DD5 comes standard with 2 rear sling studs on the stock, whereby the Scar has 1 here, 2 back here, 2 on the front. Makes for plenty of ways to mount a sling to your Scar right out of the box, which is cool. The only other thing is on the DD, yeah, you've got the rear QD point. You would need to just add yourself a M-LOK QD slot up front to have a spot to put your sling mount up front. But I guess they leave that open to the person to configure it how they want. Not a huge deal breaker, but just something to mention. Both guns utilize pretty ambidextrous controls overall. The only area that the Scar is not ambidextrous in is the bolt stop itself. The charging handle does reciprocate on the Scar, and it can be changed to the left or right side depending on what the end user wants to do. So that does make the gun ambidextrous, but some people are not big on the reciprocating bolt handle, and the Scar does have a reciprocating bolt handle. Of course, the AR-15, with the way that the DD5 is set up, their charging handle is excellent and easy to get to from both sides of the gun. You have a bolt stop that is accessible from both sides of the rifle, as well as a magazine release, and the safety lever can all be gotten to from both sides of the rifle. Another thing too, and this is a complaint that we've brought up in a couple of videos too, is that I like the Scar, and this is definitely one of my favorite auto-loading rifles. It is so fantastic. These things are stupid accurate, and they are easy to shoot, and you can put anybody behind this rifle and they'll shoot it well with a little bit of instruction. But I've never been a big fan of the parts availability with FN. These things are prone to breaking charging handles. They are prone to, you know, certain parts wearing out, just like any other system might be. But simple things like extractors, firing pins, charging handles, recoil spring assemblies, all very difficult to locate. Sometimes magazines can be difficult to locate. Now, while this gun is excellent and I would pit it against anything out there, if I had to rely on it for super long term, I would certainly question the availability of parts, and I would factor that into my decision as to what I wanted to buy. Now, one thing that's nice about an AR-10 style platform, especially from someone like Daniel Defense, is you know that not only are the parts made well, but then too, parts are available, right? Companies like CMMG, Daniel Defense, guys like that, they are really good about backing up their quality guns with great parts, right? If I buy a CMMG Mutant, all right, it uses some specialty parts. I can go on CMMG's website, and at any point, if I break an extractor, a firing pin, some crap part breaks, whatever happens, I know I can replace that part and move on with life. So from a parts availability standpoint, the DD wins head over heels in that regard, because it's a familiar platform and there's going to be a lot better part support for this gun versus something like the FN Scar. Now, granted, there are a lot of specialized components on this gun that we didn't even go into detail about. Each gun has its own specialized parts and components that certainly are unique to each gun, which I thought, you know, would be a cool talking point. Now, if you look at the video on the DD5, check it out. We go into some of the detail of the changes that they made on this rifle and some of the unique components and the configuration of this rifle, but it's certainly cool. It's got some nice bomb proofing built into it. That's really, really cool. Overall, both the guns are very accurate, very capable, and certainly really, really nice. You know, and it's funny, I posted, a picture on Instagram the other day of these two rifles sitting next to each other, and it was entitled Sibling Rivalry, okay? And I mentioned, hey, you know, we're gonna do a little video kind of showing these things off and discussing what we, you know, think about them, right? Well, oddly enough, I had a lot of people. I was really surprised at how divided people were with, you know, who loved the FN rifles versus the Daniel Defense. And every group of products is gonna have their little following and people that really, you know, kind of fanboy on that particular brand or that particular gun. And I feel like we've been lucky to have access to so much cool stuff over the years and get to really garner an opinion that is based on lots of experience with many different platforms and not just one thing. So I have to say that out of a lot of the platforms I've tested, the DD for the money is a solid performer. They use exceptional hammer forged barrels. And the profile of these barrels is what they call a strength to weight ratio profile, which is an ideal, by still maintaining rigidity and good function in the barrel and everything, but getting it as light as it can where it can be light, and leaving it thick and rigid where it needs to be thick and rigid in order to have those great harmonics and really, not upset the harmonics of the barrel in terms of accuracy and rigidity, which is a big deal. Now, the SCAR 20S has a heavy-ish barrel, but it is a very similar profile overall, the two. I wouldn't consider, either gun a full bull or a target barrel, but definitely a healthy mixture of a nice light profile to cut down on weight, but still retaining rigidity in both systems. I will say that we've shot the SCAR 20S out to 1,000, and I felt that the gun kind of struggled to get out to 1,000 super reliably, especially with a 175 grain bullet. I found that really the auto-loading 308s, such as the DD5 and the 20S, really hold their own at about 800 yards in a gas gun and in any type of an auto-loader. It's not to say you can't shoot the guns 1,000, but it just seems like with the advent of all of these 6mm and 6.5 cartridges that are being developed and used by so many people in competition, that the 308 has really fell by the wayside for a extreme long range gun, right? Most people, kind of figure that the 7.62x51 308 rifles like these really excel the most at like 600 yards is really where they shine. You know what I mean? When you get past the point of needing a lot of dope to get up, to get out to 600 versus getting to 800, there's a considerable amount of dope between 6 and 8, but 6 seems to be like really where these things sing quite well. I'd consider these guns 800-yard guns all day long. Sure, you can shoot 1,000. I mean, if you were to hand load up a nice like Lapua 155 grain CNR on a good hot charge of powder and dial the gun in just right, absolutely. You could shoot these guns out to 1,000. No one's saying you can't do it. You could probably shoot them out to 11, but that might be pushing it. But the cool thing is, I would really like to see a DD5 in 6.5 Creedmoor, and especially if the accuracy potential of the 6.5 Creed is as good as what we saw out of the 308 version. I would love to see a 6.5 Creed slam steel at 12, 13, maybe even extreme long range. You might even be able to get a 6.5 Creed out to about 1,400 yards, okay? And that's really extending the range capabilities on what you can get out of these autoloaders when you start getting to a good BC projectile that really cuts through and has a good flat trajectory, okay? So it'll be cool to see how things progress with the 6.5 Creed. I know a lot of people are starting to build guns in 6mm Creed, which is kind of odd, I know a lot of folks are having great success out of the 6mm AR like Chad. We will be revisiting some of those flat shooting cartridges in some future videos. But this has been the Battle of the 30s. This is not all of them. We're going to be showing off and comparing and contrasting more guns in an auto-loading configuration. So let me know if you like this format of video and if you'd like us to look at more stuff like this, just going through the facts and really kind of, getting to the beans and bullets of this. Let me know what you think and we'll make more of these videos. So the big question is, which one's better? I don't know. I mean, they each have their own charm about them. I have to say that if I'm physically moving around and walking around and having to move places, especially through woods or going, up and down hills and things, I'd rather have the DD, obviously, just because of the lighter weight. Now, if I was from, fixed position or something and wasn't concerned about weight, the SCAR is certainly a fantastic shooter. Both guns are great. You can't go wrong with either one. It's hard to choose. I like both of them. The DD probably wins a few points on just having better parts support, as well as a lighter weight and outstanding performance. And of course, if I can get good velocity even out of the shorter barrel, that's cool. So yeah, both guns have some great talking points. So maybe you guys enjoyed this. Let me know. Definitely want to take a moment to thank all of our Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for the support. Those of you who purchased t-shirts over on Ballistic Ink, thank you so very much for the support. Go check out our man cans. We put together some great boxes just for you, hand-selected items by our team here of gear that we know you are going to love. If you love the channel and you love what we do and you wish to support us, those are the most direct ways you can do so. Go pick up a man can or a t-shirt, donate a few bucks on Patreon, really supports our efforts. Have a great day. We'll see you guys soon.